G'day friends and fans, welcome to Dave Talk Stuff Ukraine War Update for the 6th of June 2026. Oh no, it's 666 everyone, run for the hills! Alright, Putin has called out Zelensky. Now Zelensky addressed Putin 2 days ago in an open letter urging him to stop the war against Ukraine. Now it took 2 days to come up with a very short phrase. All you have to do is follow the agreement outlined in acreage. So there it is. Now let's look at the state of the war. Ukraine has come under heavy attack, but it is not as big as the one that is building. It is estimated to occur probably 2 days from now, perhaps 3. There'll be a retaliation from the attack today on St. Petersburg. Because Ukraine can't defeat Russia on the battlefield, they are increasingly turning to attacking upmarket buildings and businesses in Russia. An attack on the outer suburbs of St. Petersburg will be retaliated too, but it'll be a really big attack, which usually takes around 2 days. Russia could immediately respond, I suppose, but some estimates are that they're going to respond with an Omsk. And there has been chatter about a Omsk attack on Kiev planned. But Russia usually saves the Omsk for something big, usually a juicy target, because they can't catch Ukraine's Air Force on the ground, because Ukraine's Air Force isn't on the ground in Ukraine. So we have attacks in this area, Kharkov, Kherson, Dnipro, Kherson. That was the upper port of Odessa was a Kinzhal, but it's generally probably, I would say, it's not going to be Kiev. It's going to be Dnipro or Kharkov. Now, the Russians have continued their grind and generally referred to as offensive operations rather than an offensive. I know it's wordplay, but rather than a large scale operation involving huge coordinated attacks, a huge single coordinated attack, it is multiple small attacks. But they're all still offensive in nature, but it's not a offensive in what general military parlance is to send the entire army off in one big operation for a strategic target. Now, this is advancing the lines. And Kupiansk, still under the grind. Small breakthrough in Lyman, but still under the grind. Operations still continuing with very little gains, but the Russians are appearing to revert back to street fighting in Krasnokovia while they start to swallow Dovnabluka. Is it Dovnabluka, Blacker? Sorry, I can't read it well, but most of this town here is already swallowed. They're working on this one. Ivaninka, Berstock, they're all fallen. Yeah, this area here is... looks like they're going back over this. So, yay, guess, for Kostnikovia. Still grinding away here. Slowly advancing here. Still stuck here. Stuck here. Stuck here. Stuck here. Grinding away. Slowly moving around to... but most of Nova has fallen. There's only this little bit here, which is really inconsequential. Let's might as well just say it's Novishka. But Novishka, I think, is from this point on, that these few blocks here, and Novinishki. For some reason, the Russians are fighting here, but this isn't marked in yet, so we'll leave it at that. Russia is still at a stalemate here. Stalemate. There are areas where Ukraine is holding the Russians in a stalemate, but that also means the Ukrainians can't take troops off those areas, or they'll have another breakthrough. Though the Russians are grinding forward slowly, made small gains in Zelenishky. For the most part, and again, I thought they'd be shelling Orkiv, but no, for some reason they have not. Well, Ukraine pushed the Russians back here, but the Russians, a couple of days ago, or a week ago now, but the Russians are back halfway through. Yeah. So, yeah, attack. Ukraine has attacked again, position as usual, the Luhansk, attacking civilians, trying to crush spirits, and themselves, just trying to spread the misery. But generally, nothing strategic has for either side. We'll see what happens in the next 24 hours, but I think it's going to be more 48 before we see the big retaliation. And it'll probably be mixed in with the general attack that's usually scheduled for Tuesday, Wednesday. It would be interesting if they did make 2 attacks and see exactly what. But it's unlikely we'll find out what they attacked. But I will look on Telegram and see. Sometimes, something creeps through. Just like, this. Yeah. Apparently, whatever was here seems to be dealt with, because Russia hasn't attacked again. Now, it's actually here somewhere they attacked, just north of Bila. Now, they haven't attacked the big industries back here for a while. I think that is because there is a string of air defences along here, making it difficult. Empire Valves, that's one word, empirevalves.myshopify.com. If you really like to support the channel, your Empire Valves is your one-stop shop for enchanting treasures based on my writing. There's the main character, Emperor Cade Hashimoto. If you couldn't tell by his floppy ears hidden by his hair, he is an elf. A flower, to be precise. And there's his wives and concubines. Oops. But I don't just have coffee mugs, latte, water bottles, travel mugs, and expanding out. Posters and bags. There is the Dragon Klaihana. It's a wall poster in multiple sizes. Of the Dragoness herself. Because unlike many channels, I'm sponsored by you, the viewing audience. Now, this will probably, as you can see, it is contains, it is wired. If handled properly, this drone could make significant change to the war. Here we have preparations for the deployment of the thermobaric drone, carrying, as you can see, 10. Unusual. Russia would either put 8 or 16, but 10. So they've maxed, probably just on maximum weight, as you can see. It has spools of fiber optics. He's plugging it in right now. Here you go. But it does have a remote. So the fiber optics could be just for remote control for attached devices as opposed to a complete fiber optic chain. Now, as you can see, it does have its little tow line. It is based on the Turtle chassis. When I was a kid, they would talk about little drones like this, little remote controls, little flat remote controls. Some were deployed first, I think initially, Lebanon, but you started seeing robots for bomb disposal. Now, similar technology, but as you can see, it's a small rocket system based on the man-portable. Now, it's smaller. It's a 60 millimeter as opposed to the 122 carried by, carried by, there you go. There's the man portable. There's the, I think that's actually an 80 millimeter there. That's still bigger than the one on the back of the drone. But as you can see, you don't want to be around when that goes off. There you go. So it is basically a recoilless tube launcher like the American Law or the it's basically a RPG but smaller than an RPG. Yeah, there it goes. It's way smaller than it's pretty much, yeah. You wouldn't want to be standing behind it. But there you go. Quite the, yeah. So I wouldn't know. Very, yeah, look at that. Exaggerated, but still, that's what a whole series of them could do to the battlefield. But that's more realistic right there. Bang. Yeah. Load of 6 big, mother loads onto a Orsk and set that in the middle of, say, Dnipro. That would definitely put that truck stop out of business. She won't want to hit it empty. Now, I know Russia's hitting Ukraine rather regularly, and but It's all by design. I'm pretty sure Ukraine knows that too, and that they're waiting and hoping that during one of their deliveries, they wait for a hit and then bring stuff across the border. And of course, when Russia only hits them with stops at 200 something drones, yeah. See, Russia doesn't hit Ukraine all at once, right? Sends them in small swarms. But I think there's a big one coming. And I think they're going to try. Russia is hoping to catch Ukraine out to launch a regular attack. And then as the deliveries start to occur, probably hit with an ONSC. But the thing is, anything Russia does is going to be picked up and transmitted, and within an hour, Ukraine can have those truck stops emptied. So I don't know how they're going to catch or what they're working on to make for Putin saying, my next attack is going to be bigger, because it's been a while now. But like I said, this ain't his attack. He is planning a big one. And I think it's a couple of days. I think they're going to retaliate for St. Petersburg. There's pressure to use an Omsk again. Now, Ukraine has gotten reloads of Patriots and other air defences from Norway. But there's pressure on Putin to use Omsk to prove that the previous strikes, not just can hit any target in Ukraine, but put the fear of Russia into Europe again. Basically, you want Russia to be a bad guy? We're going to make you afraid, is the response, right? As I said, Russia a few days ago said that he was going to retaliate and was ready for a full-scale Omsk attack. Now, it's only been used 3 times, and the defense minister clarified they've only hit military targets in the past. But when asked, Putin said he would consider one on an urban area, which I don't know if he was trying to rattle the Europeans by saying that, or to further hammer home the point that in retaliation for a attack on civilian areas, Russia should do the same, just like Britain did to Germany. He's trying to hammer that little point home, that the Allies weren't exactly, lily white in their approach to war. Now, large-scale attacks did occur. A large number of drones. The drone swarm, by the way, was 5. One got through, started a fire with no casualties reported. Now, they did say it was on infrastructure, but it was infrastructure in a civilian area outside of the center of St. Petersburg. Did say, yeah. But it occurred on the 3rd. And they did attack a grain ship in a Russian port. Yeah. And then Zelensky does what Zelensky does. He attacks Russin ships, Russian cities, and then calls for an end to the war. And Putin has responded with, he has not ruled out a deal, but could be resolved quickly if the Ukrainian leadership agrees to what was discussed in Anchorage. Now, what was discussed in Anchorage was between Putin and Trump with a letter for Zelensky, which it was delivered to Trump to deliver to Zelensky. Now, Sputnik has also posted on X. In response to the European Union as a whole or individually cannot act as intermediary since they directly aid Ukraine and could not be considered a neutral party, and pointed out that Ukraine does not have the weaponry that Russia possesses. And as a reminder, this is that they can unload fury if they really wanted to. Has not scaled. They said it's not a full-scale attack. It has, if they wanted to, they could hit multiple targets and devastate. Now, they also claim Ukraine has a manpower crisis, that men are being treated like stray dogs, rounded up, that they have a shortage of 40,000, adding that 20,000 desert. Now, most of those go home, right? There are around 200,000 outstanding criminal cases for desertion. About 60,000 have deserted since the start of this year alone, most of whom have been returned to the front by force. Now, some of them suffering fatigue. A lot of them don't want to be there in the first place. But some of them desert because they've been abandoned, right? The officers take the men out, stick them in a trench, tell them to stop the Russians at any cost, and leave. There's been no evacuation of wounded. There's been no evacuation. This happened at several times, and in the past, where a lot of captured Ukrainians either are amongst the wounded left behind when the Ukrainian officers flee, and this is not a general attack on Ukraine. This is individuals within the Ukrainian army, time and time again, have abandoned their men and suffered no consequence, while men who don't want to go to war or been forced to go or suffered catastrophic injuries or have not been allowed to leave the front, and those who do think, those who are sick of it or just can't take it anymore, who leave, suffer consequences of being jailed and then sent back to the front to spend even more time at the front. While those officers who have routinely pilfered, lied, failed to report for duty, they just get a slap on the wrist and get sent. It's I know it's difficult in a war, and Russia is having its difficulties too. It's not a pleasant thing. It's not. It's people got sold a false bill of goods about the great adventure that war was going to be in World War One. World War Two, they were way more cautious, but still, the casualties were ludicrous. But for now, this limited action, despite all its attempts, is producing a large number of broken men who just are not getting the help they need. And it's going to damage Ukraine far more. And Zelensky's letter calling for an end to the war, it's not Putin who has to end the war. It is Zelensky who has to sign the piece of paper and have some arbiter or some arbitrary punishment facing them if they break the agreement, because they've broken not one but two agreements in the past. And I don't care what people say about the Minsk Accords. Ukraine never implemented them. Full stop. End of story. The state of the war is right now hanging in the balance. What happens over the next couple of weeks decides the outcome. If Russia overreacts, they risk a broader response from Europe. But Europe is already threatening to escalate the war. They just finished a $90 billion deal, and now they're talking about a second deal, right? How much money is Ukraine burning, literally burning? How much equipment is it making it to the front because Russia is blowing it up? They just got 90 billion. That's a lot. That's on top of their 127 billion of their own money they allegedly have or spend. That's on top of all the other aid packages. It's gone from a few billion a month to what? Almost 10 billion a month. Ukraine is going to be, Europe is going to go bankrupt. Everyone is just blowing away money. And it's not, take the money aside, they're blowing away lives. But what do women care? They're having parties in Ibiza. They're online telling you, meet Ukrainian beauties. Yeah, just catch ears. You've got to go to Ukraine to go pick her up. Good luck, son. You end up fighting in a war. No, Romania and Poland, they're trying to get rid of all the Ukrainian women. Why don't they marry them? Why are they advertising them to Australia, Canada, and America? Why aren't they marrying them? They're so great. Why aren't you marrying them? So there is a big problem in Ukraine that nobody wants to talk about, and that is, where's the next generation going to come from? They're dead. Their women are leaving. Who's going to be in Ukraine other than old people? Zelensky's talked about this, and so has his opposition, and they all want to point the finger at Putin, but at the end of the day, when there's an agreement on the table and you won't sign it, yeah, and all he does is keep addressing Putin, saying, please stop the war. Well, sign the agreement. And then he says no. So don't stop blaming Putin. Credit where credit is due. This all would have been, and I don't blame Putin. I don't blame Putin. I don't blame Zelensky. It comes back to Obama. It comes back to the European Union. It comes back to the demands and the pressure on Ukraine to join the European Union. And anybody who was opposed to it have either been driven off or killed. That's the European Union is the problem. And it does, and a neutral Russia should have been what we wanted in the first place. But if you're going to keep pressuring Russia, you're only going to strengthen China. Thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. Please support the channel. You can support me on Ko-Fi, Patreon, buy my books, buy my merch. All my links are in the link tree, description below, in my profile, or scan the QR code on the screen. Thank you for listening. I appreciate each and every one of you. See you in the next video, and bye for now.